Just released from prison last week, is now charged with killing his mother and younger brother after they were found dead in their Wilson County home on Monday.
My baby is home. Lord, I thank you. Those were the exact words Dana Jenkins typed on her Facebook page on March 25, 2025. The post racked up dozens of likes and supportive comments from friends and family. A mother's joy captured in all caps and exclamation points. A celebration of her 25-year-old son Daron's return after more than 3 years behind bars. 6 days later, that same quiet home on Snowden Drive in Wilson, North Carolina was bathed in the pulsing red and blue lights of police cruisers. Neighbors stood in shocked clusters on their front lawns as officers strung yellow crime scene tape around the property. The same neighbors watched as 2 body bags were wheeled out on gurneys and loaded into the county medical examiner's van. Inside those bags, Dana Jenkins, 50, and her 15-year-old son, Daryn Cox. The killer? The very same son whose freedom Dana had celebrated less than a week earlier. 6 days. That's all it took to go from a mother's joyful Facebook post to a double homicide that rocked this small community just east of Raleigh.
You could see it, the look. It told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
I said, the look on his face. He's getting ready to do something, Dana's cousin Juanilla Cornegay later told reporters. You could see it, the look, it told you everything. But I had no idea you were getting ready to do what you did. But nobody stopped him. Nobody could imagine what was coming, not even the family members who noticed something was off about Daron since his release. Welcome to Shadows of Crime. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a case that exposes the raw truth about what happens when prison release goes catastrophically wrong. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and notification bell right now because we don't sugarcoat the truth. And you won't want to miss what's coming next.
He's looking like he just got out of a mental ward, or he's getting ready to do something, or he have done something. Because the look on his face told me that he done something. Because his hand was cut all up, you know. And
Daron's hand.
Yeah, he had the bandage on his hand.
Carnegie also says she became concerned about her loved ones because of the way the cousins' cars were parked.
I looked over to the side and I was like, why is her car turned this way? She never parks this.
So that was the first indication you thought something's not right.
I did.
This all happened 6 days, Carnegie told me, after Dana Jenkins got out of prison.
He's just getting out of prison.
And that was connected to his attacking his mom, you
Yeah,
say?
for beating his mama. She was a very sweet person. Anything she can do for you, she'll do it.
What turned a homecoming into a bloodbath? What pushed a man to murder the mother who'd been counting down the days until his release? And why did a 15-year-old boy with his whole life ahead of him end up as collateral damage in this family tragedy? The answers will shock you. The warning signs that everyone missed will haunt you. And the 6 days between freedom and murder will make you question everything you think you know about family bonds. Drop a comment if you've ever had that gut feeling something was off about someone and you were right, because in this case, those gut feelings were screaming, but nobody listened until it was too late. This is the story of Dana Jenkins, Daryn Cox, and the son who killed them both just days after coming home. March 25, 2025 was supposed to be the start of something good for the Jenkins family. Dana had been planning for this day for months. Cleaning the house, preparing Daron's favorite foods, and telling everyone who would listen that her oldest boy was finally coming home. She was glowing, recalled a co-worker who saw Dana that morning, talking about how they were going to be a family again, how God had answered her prayers. That afternoon, Dana drove to the state correctional facility where Daron had spent the last 3 years serving time for larceny of firearms and breaking and entering. When they pulled into the driveway of their Snowden Drive home, several family members were already waiting with balloons and a hand-painted Welcome Home banner. Photos from that day showed Dana beaming beside her tall, stone-faced son. In one image, she has her arm wrapped around his waist while he stares blankly at the camera. It would be the last family photo they'd ever take. Dana Jenkins wasn't just any mom. At 50, she worked full-time, attended Mount Moriah Community Church every Sunday, and devoted herself to raising her younger son, Daron. Neighbors described her as the kind of woman who would give you the shirt off her back and never had a bad word to say about anyone. 15-year-old Daron was cut from the same cloth. A sophomore at Bedingfield High School, he played music at church, ran the media team during services, and was known for his infectious smile. Teachers would later describe him as the kind of kid who lights up a classroom. But while Dana and Daron represented the best of this tight-knit community, Daron's return cast an immediate shadow. Juanila Cornegay, who lived next door and was Dana's cousin, noticed it right away. When he got out, something wasn't right about his eyes, she told investigators. They were empty, like nobody was home. Other family members who attended the welcome home gathering reported that Daron barely spoke, picked at his food, and kept glancing at the doors and windows as if planning an escape route. In the days following Daron's homecoming, the red flags weren't just waving, they were practically screaming. Family members later told police that Daron barely slept. He paced the house at all hours, opening and closing doors, checking windows, muttering to himself. One relative described him as a bomb waiting to go off.
Their cousin, who also lives next door, Juanila Carnegie, told me she dreaded this day would come.
I'm hurt because I knew he was going to do something. You can just see he was so fidgetive. He was so anxious. He could not stay still. He had that sneakiness about him. You know what I mean? Like a crazy person trying to get ready to do something, like premeditation.
Another relative noticed that Daron would sometimes freeze mid-conversation, staring into space for uncomfortably long periods before snapping back to reality with no explanation. When asked if he was okay, he'd simply reply, "I'm good," and walk away. This wasn't just post-prison adjustment. This was something darker. Daryn Jenkins had a rap sheet that stretched back to his teens. At 19, he was arrested for breaking into cars in a church parking lot. At 21, he stole 3 firearms from a neighbor's home. His prison record included multiple citations for fighting and what officials called malicious conduct by a prisoner, a charge typically reserved for inmates who assault guards or other prisoners. Court records revealed that Daron had been denied parole twice due to his behavior behind bars. His March 2025 release wasn't a reward for good conduct. It was simply the end of his mandatory sentence. Yet, despite all this, Dana Jenkins continued to believe in her son's redemption. She told friends at church that everyone deserves a second chance and that God doesn't make mistakes. She even arranged job interviews for Daron at 2 local businesses where she had connections. Dana was convinced she could love the darkness out of him, said Bishop Sherman Blandon of Mount Moriah Community Church. She believed in miracles. She believed in transformation. That faith would cost her everything. Perhaps the most chilling warning sign came 3 days before the murders, when Daron asked his mother for money to get some things I need. Daron gave him $200 without question. Police would later discover receipts showing he purchased duct tape, bleach, and a hunting knife from a local hardware store that same day. When Daron mentioned to his uncle that Daron had been standing outside his bedroom door at night just watching him sleep, the uncle brushed it off as weird prison habits that would fade with time. No one wanted to shatter Dana's happiness by voicing their concerns. No one wanted to suggest that maybe, just maybe, Daron wasn't ready to be home. Or worse, that he never should have come home at all. Would you confront a family member showing these warning signs, or would you stay quiet to keep the peace? Let us know in the comments, because the people who saw the storm coming in this case chose silence, and that silence had deadly consequences. Monday, March 31, 2025, 5:30 p.m., the 911 dispatcher received what police would later describe as an unknown-type call from the Jenkins residence on Snowden Drive. Something was wrong, but the exact nature of the emergency wasn't clear. Police units were immediately dispatched to the address. When officers arrived at the modest single-story home, everything appeared normal from the outside. Dana's car sat in the driveway. The porch light glowed against the early evening shadows. But no one answered their knocks. What they discovered inside the house would shock even the most experienced officers on the force. Dana Jenkins, 50 years old, and her 15-year-old son Daryn Cox were found dead in their home. The scene was brutal, evidence of extreme violence that indicated this wasn't just a murder, but an act of rage. While authorities haven't publicly released the exact manner of death, family members later revealed to media outlets that both victims had been stabbed multiple times. But here's where the case takes its first shocking turn. Dana Jenkins was still at the scene. According to police reports, officers found and apprehended Daron at the residence. He offered no resistance during the arrest. Within hours of discovering the bodies, police had charged the 25-year-old with 2 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of his mother and brother. The speed of the arrest suggests that evidence at the scene immediately pointed to Daron as the perpetrator. He was taken to Wilson County Jail, where he would remain held without bond. News of the double homicide spread rapidly through the tight-knit Wilson community. Neighbors gathered near the police tape, struggling to comprehend how a homecoming celebration could turn into a nightmare in less than a week. Daryn's classmates and teachers at Bedingfield High School were devastated, prompting the school to bring in additional counselors the following day. That hurt. It really bothered me, and I still haven't got over it, Unai Cornegay, Dana's cousin, told reporters. It's going to take a while. At Mount Moriah Community Church, where both Dana and Daron had been active members, the congregation was in shock. Bishop Sherman Blandon struggled to find words for the tragedy.
This church is where Dana and Daron found comfort. Bishop Sherman Blandon says he knew them well.
It has been very difficult, confusing, troubling.
It has been very difficult, he told local media, confusing, troubling. Even as a man of faith, I have a lot of questions. As investigators dug deeper into the case, disturbing details began to emerge about Daron's behavior and actions in the days leading up to the murders. According to court documents and family statements, Daron had been making suspicious purchases in the days after his release. Receipts would later show he had bought items that could be used in the commission of a violent crime. Purchases made with money Dana had given him to get some things I need. Even more disturbing was the revelation that Daron may have been planning the murders before he even left prison. This wasn't just a spontaneous act of violence. The evidence pointed to something far more calculated. When Daron appeared in court on April 1st, just one day after the murders, Assistant District Attorney Holly Rabel requested that the judge impose the highest amount possible for his bond, citing the brutal nature of the crime and Jenkins' criminal history. Judge Matthew Sparati set bond at $1.5 million for the first count and $1 million for the second count, though records would later indicate that Daron was being held without bond. What made the case particularly haunting was the contrast between Dana's joyful Facebook posts celebrating her son's return and the violence that followed just days later. Her last public message about Daron, "My baby is home, Lord, I thank you," stood as a tragic testament to a mother's hope blindsiding her to danger. Investigators would later confirm, through interviews with prison personnel and other inmates, that Daron had shown concerning behavior in the weeks leading up to his release. He had been denied parole twice due to conduct issues behind bars, and his March 2025 release wasn't a reward for good behavior. It was simply the end of his mandatory sentence. The most chilling aspect of the case wasn't just that Daron had killed his mother and brother, it was that he had likely been planning to do so even as Dana counted down the days until she could welcome him home with open arms. And as the community would soon learn, the horror of this betrayal was just beginning to sink in. The day after the murders, Mount Moriah Community Church opened its doors for an emergency prayer service. The pews filled quickly with shell-shocked parishioners seeking comfort and answers. Many had known Dana and Daron for years, had prayed with them, shared meals with them, watched Daron grow up. Their smiles were infectious. They would both light up a room, Bishop Sherman Blandon told the congregation, his voice breaking.
They loved each other. They loved us. We loved them, especially Daron. He meant the world to all of us. Our teens here, they're grieving heavily. This is a tragedy, and honestly, there is no winner in this. And I'll be praying for everyone watching this, everyone affected by this and impacted by this.
The church dedicated its Wednesday youth service to Daron's memory. Teenagers who had worked alongside him on the media team sat in stunned silence, many clutching photos of their friend. The church's Instagram post captured the community's heartbreak. MMCC Wilson has suffered a heartbreaking loss in our church family. It is with deep sorrow that we announce the passing of our beloved brother, Daryn Cox. His presence and his joy will be deeply missed by all who knew him. At Bedingfield High School, empty desks in Daron's classrooms became painful reminders of the tragedy. School administrators brought in additional counselors to support students and staff. A spokesperson for the school district asked the community to keep the family in your thoughts, as well as the Bedingfield community during this difficult time. For family members, grief mixed with guilt in a toxic cocktail of emotions. Many had noticed Daron's strange behavior but had dismissed their concerns out of respect for Dana's happiness.
I would have never thought that. I would have never thought he would do something like that. Not like this.
I would have never thought that. I would have never thought he would do something like that, said Juanita Corniguet, who lived next door to the victims. The pain in her voice was palpable as she added, "That hurt. It really bothered me and I still haven't got over it. It's going to take a while." When Dana Jenkins appeared in court on April 1st, witnesses described his demeanor as eerily calm. He showed no emotion as the charges were read. 2 counts of first-degree murder. No tears as family members sobbed in the gallery. No reaction as the judge ordered him held without bond. He just stared straight ahead, said one courtroom observer, like he was waiting for a bus, not facing life in prison for killing his own mother and brother. On April 12, 2025, 12 days after their lives were brutally cut short, Dana Jenkins and Daryn Cox were laid to rest. The funeral service at Ellen Forbes OFWB Tabernacle drew hundreds of mourners. Pastor Damon Royal delivered a moving eulogy that celebrated their lives rather than dwelling on the horrific way they died. The day before the funeral, a book signing was held at Contending for the Faith Church Ministries, where community members shared memories and condolences. Page after page filled with stories about Dana's kindness and Daryn's bright spirit. After the service, a long procession of cars followed the hearses to Rest Haven Cemetery, where mother and son were buried side by side. Mourners placed flowers on the fresh graves as Bishop Blandon offered a final prayer. Meanwhile, just miles away, Dana Jenkins sat in a cell at Wilson County Jail, awaiting trial for the murders he'd committed less than 2 weeks after his mother had welcomed him home with open arms and a heart full of hope. Have you ever known someone who completely changed after prison? Someone whose behavior set off alarm bells that others ignored? Share your experience below, because this case proves that sometimes those warning signs aren't just paranoia. They're matters of life and death. As the Wilson community mourns, crucial questions hang in the air like smoke after a fire. Questions that might help prevent the next family tragedy, if we can find answers. First and foremost, what was Daron's true motive? While investigators haven't publicly confirmed a motive, money appears to be a significant factor. Court documents revealed that Dana Jenkins had a substantial life insurance policy through her employer, with Daron listed as the primary beneficiary. Had he succeeded in making the murders look random, as allegedly planned, he might have collected hundreds of thousands of dollars. But was it just about money, or was there deeper resentment brewing during those 3 years behind bars? Did Daron blame his mother for his incarceration? Did he target Daryn out of jealousy over the teenager's close relationship with Dana and his success in school and church? These psychological questions may never be fully answered. Could the system have prevented this tragedy? Daryn Jenkins was released after serving his mandatory sentence, not because he'd shown good behavior or rehabilitation. In fact, he'd been denied parole twice due to conduct issues in prison, yet he walked out with minimal supervision and no psychological evaluation. His 9-month post-release supervision program clearly failed in its first week. There was no check-in with a parole officer before the murders. No one monitored his suspicious purchases. No one followed up on family concerns about his behavior. The system designed to protect the public essentially operated on an honor system with a man who had repeatedly shown dishonor. This case isn't isolated. Across America, similar tragedies unfold when violent offenders return home without proper transition support or monitoring. A 2023 Department of Justice study found that the first 30 days after release represent the highest risk period for recidivism, especially for crimes against family members. The psychological aspects of family violence after incarceration are complex. Prison changes people. The hypervigilance needed to survive behind bars doesn't switch off at the prison gates. The institutionalization, the trauma, the severed connections to normal society all create a perfect storm when combined with pre-existing violent tendencies. For families welcoming home incarcerated loved ones, the balance between support and self-protection becomes nearly impossible to navigate. Dana Jenkins chose hope. She chose faith in redemption. She chose to believe her son could change. That choice cost her everything. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of this case is the contrast between Dana's Facebook celebration of her son's return and the reality of what was happening inside his mind. While she posted, "My baby is home, Lord, I thank you," with genuine joy, he was allegedly plotting her death. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the people we think we know best are strangers wearing familiar faces, that the bonds we believe are unbreakable can snap in an instant, that hope, while beautiful, is not a substitute for caution when warning signs appear. As this case moves toward trial, the Jenkins family and all of us are left to wonder, how do we balance second chances with safety? When does faith become fatal? And how many other mothers are celebrating homecomings that might end in tragedy? "My baby is home, Lord, I thank you." Those words still sit on Dana Jenkins' Facebook page, digital ghosts that no one has the heart to delete, frozen in time, just like the mother who wrote them with such hope and joy. 6 days later, that baby she thanked God for would take her life and the life of her younger son. 6 days between celebration and slaughter. 6 days between prayers answered and nightmares realized. 6 days between welcome home and rest in peace. As you're watching this video right now, somewhere in America, a mother is posting about her child's prison release. She's cleaning a bedroom, cooking favorite meals, believing in second chances. How many of them are Dana Jenkins counting down to their own destruction? This has been Shadows of Crime. If you found this story compelling, hit that subscribe button and join our community. Share this video with someone who appreciates the complex realities behind violent crimes. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember that speaking up about concerning behavior might just save a life.